Wedged between a state highway and the sprawl of the Twin Cities, a scrap of ancient forest still stands. Its trails climb steep wooded ridges, its shade holds trees that were old before the suburbs came, and it carries the memory of a woodland that once covered thousands of square miles. This is Tierney Woods, a surviving fragment of the Big Woods. We are in Bloomington, on the southern edge of the Twin Cities, where the land tips down toward the valley of the Mni River. Highway 169 hums past one side, Anderson Lakes Parkway curls around the other, and yet just inside the tree line the traffic fades into birdsong. These woods are part of the sprawling Hyland-Bush-Anderson Lakes Park Reserve, a green chain stitched through the suburbs. Before the plows and the pavement, a vast hardwood forest blanketed this part of Minnesota. Early settlers called it simply the Big Woods, a dense dome of sugar maple, basswood, elm, and oak that once spread across roughly 3,000 square miles west of the Mississippi. Today, only about 1% of it survives, scattered in a handful of protected pockets. Tierney Woods is one of those living remnants. The steepness underfoot is no accident. At the end of the last ice age, a colossal glacial river called the River Warren tore this broad valley open, leaving high bluffs and stepped terraces along its edge. Tierney Woods rides that rumpled ground above the modern Minnesota River. Its ravines and short, sharp climbs cut into the old glacial slopes where the uplands break toward the lowland. Below the wooded ridges, the land flattens into marsh. The Anderson Lakes are shallow, reed-rimmed basins, thick with cattail and alive with herons, turtles, and clouds of waterfowl. Their waters drain through 9 Mile Creek and on toward the Minnesota River, part of an old plumbing of shallow lakes and wetlands that has always defined this corner of the valley. Long before any park reserve, this whole country was the homeland of the Dakota people, who called it Mni Sota Makoce, the land where the waters reflect the skies. The wooded bluffs, the shallow lakes, and the wide river valley below gave the Dakota fish and game, wild plants, and rich ground for planting through the turning of the seasons. In the 1830s, a Mdewakanton Dakota leader named Cloud Man led a band that farmed and fished near the lakes of Minneapolis. In 1839, pressed by conflict to the north, Cloud Man moved his people south to a place called Oak Grove, here in what is now southern Bloomington, on the bluffs and bottoms of the Minnesota River just beyond these woods. The valley they settled was an oak savanna rich with life. In the wide bottoms, the people hunted deer and elk, trapped beaver and muskrat, and gathered wild rice from the shallow floodplain lakes. Women planted corn, beans, and squash in the black soil, and in early spring they tapped the maples and birches for sugar. Basswood and cedar became dugout canoes, and elm and willow bark sheathed their summer lodges. Two brothers from Connecticut, Gideon and Samuel Pond, had come to Minnesota in 1834 to live among Cloud Man's band, learning the Dakota language and helping teach farming. In 1843, they followed the band to this river bluff and founded the Oak Grove Mission, one of the earliest permanent settlements in what would become Bloomington. It did not last. In 1851, the Treaties of Traverse, Sioux and Mendota forced the Dakota to give up nearly all of their land in southern Minnesota. Within a few years, Cloud Man's people were removed to a narrow reservation far up the Minnesota River, and the valley they had tended for generations was open to a flood of settlers. The mission's Dakota community was gone. As farms and then suburbs swallowed the surrounding land, this steep, ravine-cut ground was too rough and too wet to be easily cleared or built upon. And so the forest simply stayed. What the plow spared, the parks eventually protected, and a working piece of the old big woods was handed forward, almost by accident, into the modern city. Step in under the canopy, and the difference is immediate. Sugar maple and basswood close overhead in a dense green ceiling, oak and elm mixed among them, and the light comes down soft and cool. This is a shade forest, the kind that in spring floods its floor with wildflowers before the leaves fill in, and in autumn burns gold and scarlet over the ridges. The trails here do not simply wander, they climb. Narrow turf paths pitch up and over the wooded ridges and drop into shaded ravines, following the folds the ancient river left behind. It is a small park, less than 2 miles of trail, but the constant rise and fall makes it feel far larger and far wilder than its place on the map would suggest. A forest like this is never truly finished. In recent years, the emerald ash borer, a tiny invasive beetle, has reached these woods and begun killing the ash trees, and park crews now work to remove and replace them before they fall. It is a quiet reminder that even a protected remnant is a living thing, always shifting, always needing tending. To walk Tierney's Woods is to walk a little way back in time. Close your ears to the distant highway and this shaded, climbing forest looks much as the big woods did when Cloud Man's people moved through the valley below, and when the first surveyors pushed in with their chains. It is a rare thing, a genuine scrap of the world that was. Thank you for walking Tierney's Woods with Frou World Explorer, a steep green fragment of the ancient big woods, holding on above the Minnesota River between the highways and the houses, still keeping its shade and its stories. If you enjoyed this walk, subscribe and come along for the next trail.